Hi there, and welcome to my presentation at the QSO Today 2022 Virtual Ham Expo. I'm going to be talking about renewable energy, going beyond a gas generator, and backup power strategies in the 21st century. I am Ria, my call sign is N2RJ. I've been licensed for 25 years. Can't believe it's been 25 years since I first got that license in Port of Spain, Trinidad, which is where I'm from. I'm going to tell you a little bit about me first. I am an alumna of the Brooklyn Polytechnic / New York University School of Engineering, Bachelor of Science in Electrical Engineering. I do consulting for the renewable energy industry and energy storage. It's a new role that I've been getting into, so expect a lot more from that. I also do software engineering, and I also do a lot of social media, and I have 2 YouTube channels that I'd like to tell you about. The first one of them is Ria Shack Ham Radio, which is my amateur radio channel where I talk about amateur radio, radio communications, and other related things. The second of them is Solar Power and Renewable Energy by Ria. So I'll put links to those. You can take a look, like, and subscribe. Now, this presentation is not intended to be a deep dive. It is enough to get you interested, and it is going to give you some good ideas to go on. So, if you want to learn more, I'm happy to take questions. You can email me, ria@n2rj.com, or you can go and look on my YouTube channel, leave a comment, and let me know, okay? Finally, I'd like to thank Eric Guth for Z1UG, his entire staff, and volunteers at the QSO Today Virtual Ham Expo for making this happen. And now, without further ado, let's talk energy. So why have I titled this presentation Beyond the Gas Generator? Well, gas generators have been the king of emergency power for a long time. They're most people's go-to, but they're no longer the only option, and dare I say the best option. There is new tech enabled by batteries, solar, wind, hydroelectric, and alternate fuels. So there are a lot of options these days that kind of give the gas generator a run for their money. But in some cases you can't really escape from that, but there are ways you can actually still incorporate a fuel-driven generator even if you completely give up the gas habit. But I don't care about being green. Well, I do, but that's cool if you don't. I mean, it's your choice. There is so much more than being green. And actually, for me, my main motivation is not really being green. It's more about other things like resilience and independence, some of which you probably treasure. Why would you look for an alternative energy source? So, one of the things we experience here in New Jersey is Hurricane Sandy, which basically put a good crimp on our fuel supplies. The refineries along the coast, they shut down, and we were out of fuel. There was state-imposed rationing based on license plates, and we were not allowed more than 10 gallons. So you get 10 gallons for your car, and you probably don't get any for your generator. So that's how it works. And then some fuels don't store well. Gasoline gets to varnish, and diesel could probably get fungus or some other, degradation. Diversifying your energy sources also brings resilience. So you can still keep a fuel generator, but you just have something else. And of course, you have an opportunity to save money even in non-emergency use. But before you decide on what you're going to use to power your equipment, what do you want to power? Let's talk about your ham station first and foremost. So each HF radio, most people have 100-watt radios. They'll probably draw, believe it or not, close to 200 watts. Each VHF radio close to 100 watts, maybe like 70, 80 watts. You run an amplifier, that's easily 2 kilowatts. A computer, anywhere from 25 watts for the Evolve 3 Maestro, which I show on the YouTube channel, to 500 watts for a high-end gaming PC, maybe more. Low-power PCs and Raspberry Pi could draw a lot less. Consider for your home, because you want to back up your home. Consider your essentials, lights, a fridge, and if you're like me, you have a well, you need a well pump. The well pump may require 240 volts, and anywhere from 500 watts to 2 kilowatts if you have a deep well. And you also have the inrush surge current that these well pumps pull. 240 volt loads may require the use of 2 generators, which we'll discuss a little later. Fridges, your refrigerator draws a shockingly low amount of power. I've seen mine draw about 100 watts, except during a defrost cycle. So before you actually look and guesstimate, you can actually get an energy monitor. Okay, so I have a couple of them. I have this P3 kilowatt on the left, which plugs in, and then I plug in my loads. On the right, I have a Sense, which installs in my electric panel, and there's 2 clamps that attach to the main wires. They're what you call current transformers, where they magnetically read the current coming in, so they can tell me how much power that comes into my mains. And they use some sophisticated algorithm to detect which devices come on and off. Here you can actually see a chart of what's on right now, and then you actually see here you have when they came on, the well pump, the AC, charging my electric vehicle is there too, but it detects a ton of devices. Pretty good little piece of kit. Of course, if you're QRP or portable, you probably know a lot about power already. Your power needs are very minimal. You got the best bang for the buck. It's great if you have good antennas, a good location, but it's frustrating otherwise, so you might need to invest some more power. It's not for everyone. So let's talk about 2 things, energy sources and energy storage. So energy sources, we're talking about alternative energy sources. You have solar, wind, microhydro, engine generators. We could go back to engine generators, commonly known as gensets. And these can be powered by fuels like gasoline, diesel or biodiesel, which is made from like vegetable oil, or propane or natural gas. And then to store that energy, well, energy could be stored in fuels, okay, as you do with a generator, but we're talking about batteries. Welcome to the real world. So you have here a typical example of a generator made by Honda. This one uses gasoline. You can get propane conversion kits where you can basically drill the carburetor and then add a few different jets and such like that, and a regulator, and you connect a propane tank, and you can then run that on propane or natural gas if you have a natural gas line. The pros are a gas generator can run a long time if you have fuel. They're also simpler technology. They don't have to have a lot of computers. The emissions are the main part of it, also the noise, and also California might be banning them. Other states follow. I want to bet that New Jersey is going to be one of those states. Of course, you have to have maintenance like oil changes, spark plugs, exhaust cleaning, and all sorts of stuff. And you need to exercise it regularly. What sort of fuels can you use? You can use propane, right? Propane stores indefinitely because it's a liquid fuel, but it's also a vapor. So it's kind of a gaseous fuel. It's a gas. It can be more expensive. You're paying probably $4 or $5 a gallon for these little barbecue tanks. And you do require a special generator that can run on propane. Natural gas, if you have a line, you can get a barbecue hookup. That'll hook up to your barbecue tank, and then you can use that for a generator that you converted. It's not available in all areas, particularly rural areas. It is available in more urban and suburban areas in the Northeast and other places. I got lumber in my yard. I got one old dirty propane tank with a hose. On the other end of that hose is EcoFlow dual fuel. Holy smokes. Alrighty, here we are. See now, you can turn it on. Okay, bada bing. Electric start. One start. Two start. Third time's the charm. are farms that are experimenting in biodiesel. What they do is they take waste vegetable oil, such as waste corn oil, and from restaurants and such like that, and then they purify it, and then they add some other reactants, reagents to it, and they generate diesel. That could be used in a diesel engine, but sometimes a diesel engine, I don't think some stock diesel engines will take biodiesel just by themselves. They may require modifications. I'm not sure about the emissions. Equipment probably needs to be modified, or the tuning or whatever. So let's talk about solar. You can have solar panels, charge controllers, and then the wiring and connectors. So when you're choosing solar panels, you have several choices in solar panels. You can do portable folding panels like this one to the right. These are a little more expensive. You pay for the portability. They are portable and lightweight. I've actually have them where I could pick them up and then drop them in my car trunk and, you know, drive somewhere, and I just unfold them and I have power for the day. They're not suitable for permanent outdoor use because a lot of them are backed with fabric, and, you know, they're not designed to take a beating every day getting wet. Although these panels are water, you know, they're water resistant, but they're not designed for permanent outdoor use. You can get rigid glass panels, like the same kind that goes on your roof. You do get more power out of them. They're cheaper, they're heavier, they can be mounted, but they're more suitable for outdoor use. And if you look on like Craigslist or Facebook Marketplace, you might find like big glass panels that are left over from a commercial or residential solar project that you might be able to use. So within these types of panels, there is a type of panel that's often overlooked. It's called a bifacial panel. So a solar panel typically has the panel itself, the silicon material, and then they have a backing called a back sheet. And that back sheet can be black or white. And with the bifacial panel, what they do is they don't have a back sheet, so it can actually receive light from both sides. This way you can actually double your solar input with not any change in space. And this is good for like on top of buildings where you have a white surface, or where you have somewhere you can reflect the light, or as I've discovered using a portable bifacial panel, they're really good on grass. So if you have nice, cool, kind of wet grass, because the cooling also helps, it will increase the output of your bifacial panel. Of course, the sun's light, you have to angle your panels to get the most of the sun's light, because we do get about a kilowatt per square meter of energy from the sun that hits the Earth's surface. I usually get about 25% of that in a solar panel. Maybe less, maybe 20 to 23% is typical. If you partially shade solar panels, meaning that part of the panel is covered, you will have a dramatic drop in some cases of solar output, because that panel that's shaded is now actually blocking current from other panels that are connected in series or parallel. If you want to face it toward the sun, you will get the most output. Find your angle. Finding the angle, the correct angle, could be a little bit of a challenge, but I'll show you how we can do that in two ways. One of them is you can get an automatic tracker like this one. This one's made by EcoFlow. It basically is computerized and motorized and has a little sensor that detects the angle of the sun, and then it adjusts the panels with an arm. So basically it will find the optimal angle for the sun, and during the day it'll keep tracking. Or you can do it this way. So this here is a little solar angle finder. What it is, it's a dome with a dot, and you aim this toward the sun, and the shadow of the dot will fall somewhere in the middle. It's an ingenious little device, and I keep it in my bag whenever I'm doing solar panels, so I can easily find the angle of the sun. It's so cute. I'm going to have a demo of this. So I got the sun and sky, and then I got this thing here, and if you notice the little dot, I move it towards the sun, and then you just align the dot here, see, until it's pretty much at the center. Okay, and that's where your solar angle is. If you really want to determine what sort of solar energy is at your location, you can use the PV watts calculator from the National Renewable Energy Laboratory. What you can do is you input your address, you input the parameters of your solar system, and it'll give you an estimate of how much solar radiation you get from the sun and how much your panels will produce. I have a 6.4 kilowatt array at home that I use to power my house, and this is how much energy I could get during the different months. So like in January I get almost 500 kilowatt hours, whereas in like June or July I get 8 to almost 900 kilowatt hours, which covers pretty much all my electric usage. And August, September, and it dwindles back down in December when the sun is out for fewer hours. So this is a way to determine how much solar energy you have. And it's a good idea, it's a good way to get an idea. Even if you're not planning a large-scale solar array, you can scale this down and determine how effective solar will be in your area. You're looking at solar panel ratings on the panel itself, right? You're looking at the open circuit voltage, VOC, which basically is the panel's, voltage that if you drop a multimeter across the output, this is the voltage you'll see. The ISC short circuit current, that means if you short it and you measure the current, that's the absolute maximum current. The VMP, sometimes called VMPP, is the voltage at the maximum power point, which we'll talk about with solar controllers. The IMPP is a current at the maximum power point. So this is where the solar panels are at the maximum efficiency, and they will have that voltage and current reading. Here you see a closer look at it. So this panel here has a short circuit current of 8.62 amps, open circuit voltage of 37.32 volts, and the MPP current 8.13 amps, and the voltage at maximum power at 30.76. You notice that's a lot lower because when the panel's loaded down by your solar controller, you'll find that the voltage drops. You can install solar panels in series versus parallel. If you're doing parallel, you get these branch connectors. They are type MC4 connectors, which we'll talk about. But series connections, you basically add positive to negative, and you kind of daisy chain the panels down the road, and then you'll be able to get the voltages added up. The thing about series is that it's more susceptible to partial shading, to loss of power from partial shading. Parallel is more resilient because if one panel gets shaded, well, no big deal. The other part of the array is still producing. Usually you might find that larger solar arrays have a mix of these. Like my solar array at home is 3 in series and then 2 parallel, and there are 4 of them. So this is the MC4 connector. This basically is a standard solar connector. It's a locking type connector, meaning that it has clips, and it's waterproof as well, water resistant, and it's safety. So it resists ultraviolet light and resists moisture. This is a tool because these clips can be hard to get out, so you just slide that tool on and take it off. Let's talk about wind power. Okay, so wind power, they have small wind turbines. They need height to be effective. The charge controllers that work with the wind turbine have special controls to slow down the turbine. You don't really want to use these in high winds. You want to use these in moderate winds. That'll give a steady turn. So in high winds, they actually shut down. In most of these, you do need a battery for it to be effective, and it's not suitable for all areas. As here, you'll see a wind map of the United States where they are much more effective. Microhydro, if you have flowing water like a stream or a river that you have access to and rights to, you can actually set up a microhydro turbine that takes the flow of the water, passes it through, and generates electricity. It's not dependent on sunshine. Batteries. So batteries are what you use to store your energy. You have several different chemistries. The most common ones in use today are lead acid, which could be in the form of flooded lead acid like your car battery, or what you call AGM, which basically has the electrolytes stored in a fiberglass mat. Lithium batteries, you have two common types of lithium batteries, nickel, cobalt, manganese, and lithium iron phosphate, right? Otherwise known as LiFePO4, they call it. So NCM are known as, typically they're what people commonly refer to as lithium ion batteries, even though both types are lithium ion batteries. Charge controllers. So to get all this power to your batteries and to your loads, you need a charge controller. You don't really need it, but the charge controller does some important things. The charge controller, first of all, regulates the power from your renewable source into the batteries and makes it charge optimally. The other thing a charge controller does is it blocks the voltage from your battery from going into your solar panel or wind turbine. You have two types that are commonly used: PWM, pulse width modulation, and MPPT, maximum power point tracking. PWM basically is like an on-off chopper. It switches on and off the solar panel input so that it appears to have the average DC power that's required. It's somewhat crude, but it works. It is much cheaper than the other type of solar controller, the MPPT, and there is some RFI. Here you see a typical charge curve for a lead acid battery, and the controller here will regulate that, right? So you see you have the voltage here going to the bulk charge stage, and then it goes through the absorption stage, which is a lot longer, and then it goes to the float stage. And the current stays high during the bulk stage and then tapers down during the absorption stage and then goes way down in the float stage. This is for a lithium battery. It is a little different, but here you have the constant current and the constant voltage, and it keeps the battery basically will fully charge and then stop. So at MPPT, this is one of the more exciting developments in solar controllers, maximum power point tracking. Here you see a solar IV curve in varying sunlight, so you have different sunlight that affects the solar cell differently. And you notice that the maximum voltage and the maximum power point is different for these. So the solar controller, what it does is it tracks these and finds the most efficient point where the voltage and current will produce the most power for that amount of sunlight hitting the panel. It will always try to extract the most power. Some of them hunt, they ramp up, and then they will eventually settle somewhere. When the sunlight changes, they'll move around. Some of these have RFI, but a lot of the RFI is actually radiated through cables, so some ferrites on the cables will help a lot. And then you have one of my favorites here, the solar generator. So these are all in one. They incorporate an AC inverter, which is what you need to power your AC loads, right? So you can have an inverter separately, but these you actually have it built in. They have an AC battery charger, which in this case is also the AC inverter. It's called a bidirectional inverter. They're easy to plug and play, and basically what they call solar generator is really one of these portable power stations paired with a solar panel. You can use other sources to charge. So these are usually made by companies like EcoFlow and Jackery. They're extremely portable. Mine has wheels on it. I have 4 of these that I use to power my home. They can be charged from 12 volts in your car. They can be charged from solar. They have a built-in MPPT controller. They can even be charged from a fuel engine generator. I have a generator that does dual fuel, and I have one that uses gasoline. They actually charge through DC, so it's more efficient. They have a 12 volt output. Mine has Anderson power pole for 30 amps, but you can actually get more than a lot of them only are limited to 10 amps. So generally, if you're powering ham radios, you're doing that with the AC side of things and use a power supply. But I actually use the Anderson power pole in mine. You might have to mitigate RFI with ferrite beads. It's a hit or miss with some of them. You really got to experiment around. I found out some, and I actually do some, how should I put it? I give the company advice on RFI and EMI, so I help them solve that problem. There is home integration, meaning that you can connect this into your home's electrical circuits, and they're getting bigger with more power by the day. See, I charge these with generators as well, okay? I can charge these with these EcoFlow smart generators, which connect via DC. They're much more efficient. This is a stock photo. I don't have the generator oriented that way, but you can definitely charge that to there. And they're not supplying loads, they're just charging batteries. To connect to my house, I use a smart home panel, right, which is a 10 circuit panel here. You can see this here. And what the smart home panel does is that it will take the power station's input and will take your grid input, and it will allow you to power either any amount of these 10 circuits with either the portable power station or the grid power. And with this you can do things like, for example, you can actually, if you have time of use rates in your area, like if you're in California, you have time of use plan, you can actually charge your batteries during off-peak hours and then discharge them during peak hours. And you save some money that way. You can also charge with solar, and then you can also save some money that way too. Here is the app I use. Yes, these are extensively app controlled. You can see I have a diagram of my power flows on the left. On the right, I have individual loads that show the wattage. On the extreme right, I have where my power consumption over an entire month. These are just some loads I set up. I actually have the permanent install that's being permitted and set up. Here you have their whole ecosystem. So it starts from 3.6 kilowatt hours for a single unit. You can get one with an extra battery, and then you get battery and generator. You get two batteries, sorry. Then you get a battery and a generator, and then you get a whole system up to 25 kilowatt hours, including a generator. With just batteries alone, you can get up to like 20 kilowatt hours, which could be a whole day's usage. The RFI really isn't too bad. I mean, you see here a few spots. So the one on the left side you see there is FT8. You have a little bit of noise from the MPPT controller around 18110 and 18130, a little bit there. And then you might have a little bit of hash around 18200, which is outside the band. So it's really not that bad. And the inverter was powering some heavy loads at that time. So I actually ferrited a lot of the cables. So it's actually, I got it down to a manageable level. I use this daily. I make QSOs and such like that. Wait, I'm not done. There is one more thing, okay? So there are other power sources you can use. With some of these portable power stations, you can actually charge them for free, in many cases, from an electric vehicle charging station. I'm going to show you how, okay? This is the last piece, and then we'll go to questions. Let's go. I got, he's dead, 2688 Infinity port, plugged in via EV adapter here. Charging up. There's one way to beat the price of gas. We have come to the end of the presentation, and I can take some questions. Of course, my moderator is there to help, so be sure to let him know that your questions are there and we can proceed. Thanks for watching.